Imagine standing in the middle of a collapsing market. Stocks crash, currencies burn, jobs disappear overnight. Yet you remain untouchable. Why? Because your fortune is not locked in numbers, but in something no crisis can touch your mind, your character, your discipline. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, understood this secret. He ruled armies and nations, but his greatest empire was within. He didn't hoard coins. He forged virtues. Today, I want to hand you the same blueprint. Not hype, not quick wins. A portfolio built of two assets, money you can count, and inner strength you can trust. 10 chapters, each with a timeless quote, a practical drill, and a metric you can track. Because wisdom means nothing if it stays in your head. It must shape your hands, your habits, your days. This is not about rejecting wealth, it's about building it without becoming its slave. It's about earning in silence, spending with reason, and living with unshakable calm. If you're exhausted from chasing numbers, it's time to chase mastery. Open your notebook, because your most valuable currency isn't cash, it's attention. And right now, you're about to invest it where it compounds for life. Chapter 1, Redefine Wealth Beyond Balance Sheets. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and every dollar in your account has vanished. No stocks, no property, no crypto, nothing. Most people would collapse in panic. But let's flip the scenario. Imagine instead that you keep your health, your skills, your family's trust, your discipline, and your peace of mind. Suddenly the picture changes, doesn't it? You are not broke. You are still rich in assets no bank can seize. This is where Stoicism begins its radical redefinition of wealth. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." That single line dismantles the consumer economy and points toward a wealth model no market crash can touch. Today in this first chapter, we will redefine wealth, not as a pile of possessions, but as a portfolio of 6 assets: money, time, autonomy, relationships, skills, and tranquility. If you score high across these 6 categories, you are wealthy by Stoic standards, even if your bank balance looks modest. And if you ignore them, no amount of money will save you. Modern culture tends to equate wealth with net worth, assets minus liabilities. But Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics worked with a broader ledger. They measured life not in cash flow, but in soul flow. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The Stoic formula for wealth looks like this. Wealth equals money plus time, plus autonomy, plus relationships, plus skills, plus tranquility. Each of these is an asset in your portfolio. Money provides security, not status. Time is the most finite currency. Billionaires cannot buy more. Autonomy gives you control over how you spend your hours. Relationships offer trust and loyalty, capital more durable than gold. Skills represent portable wealth you carry everywhere. And tranquility delivers the ultimate dividend, peace of mind. Think of your life as a diversified portfolio. If you only optimize for money but neglect time, health, or tranquility, your portfolio is fragile. But if you balance all 6, you create what modern investors would call an anti-fragile mix, something that grows stronger in uncertainty. Let's ground this idea with evidence. Studies on happiness show that once income crosses a certain threshold, around $75,000 to $100,000 in the United States adjusted for cost of living, more money has only diminishing returns on life satisfaction. Time affluence, the ability to control your hours, has a stronger correlation with happiness than a higher salary. The Harvard study of adult development, the longest-running happiness study in history, concluded that relationships, not money, are the strongest predictors of life satisfaction and longevity. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warns that chronic stress caused by a lack of tranquility is now one of the leading factors in the global disease burden. In other words, the data aligns perfectly with Stoic wisdom. True wealth is multidimensional. So how do we measure this wealth in practice? Try the wealth audit. Take a blank sheet of paper and draw 6 columns. Label them money, time, autonomy, relationships, skills, and tranquility. Now score each category from 1 to 10. Ask yourself honestly, right now, how strong is this asset in my life? Perhaps your money is a 7, but your tranquility is a 3. Perhaps your skills are an 8, but your relationships are a 4. Next circle, the 2 lowest scores. These are your leverage points, the weakest links in your portfolio. For the next 30 days, your task is simple design actions that raise each circled score by 2 points. For example, if tranquility is low because of constant doom scrolling, commit to a 30-minute digital sunset each night. If relationships are weak, schedule 2 meaningful conversations per week. Your wealth is not measured in stock tickers. It is measured in scores that climb over time. After 30 days, rescore all 6 columns. Did the circled areas rise by at least 2 points? If yes, you just became wealthier, regardless of your bank statement. This metric transforms wealth from a vague dream into a concrete project. It gives you a dashboard where the most critical dials, space, autonomy, and relationships are finally visible. The Stoics themselves live this truth. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, wrote in Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Here was an emperor surrounded by unimaginable wealth, yet his private diary shows no obsession with palaces or coins. He wrote about self-command, justice, and the brevity of life. Seneca, advisor to Nero, was a millionaire by Roman standards, yet he practiced voluntary poverty to remind himself that comfort is not wealth. He slept on hard mattresses, ate coarse bread, and trained his soul to value tranquility above luxury. These stories remind us that wealth is fragile if it depends on externals, but invincible if it rests on character. Now let's return to your audit. Imagine your lowest score was relationships. You commit to weekly conversations with friends or family. Over the month, your score rises from 4 to 6. At the same time, tranquility rises from 3 to 5 because you introduced a nightly digital sunset. Your money score stays steady at 7. Suddenly, without earning more, you feel wealthier. Why? Because you strengthen the areas where true poverty lived. Stoicism's definition of wealth forces us to ask, what is enough? Before you add more, decide what enough looks like. Without that decision, every gain feels insufficient. With it, every step feels abundant. Wealth, then, is not what you own. It is what you cannot lose in a market crash. It is what remains when fortune turns. To be wealthy in the Stoic sense is to have diversified strength across money, time, autonomy, relationships, skills, and tranquility. Protect the weakest and compound across all 6. So let's anchor the mantra for this chapter. Before you add more, decide what enough looks like. Now that we have redefined wealth, the question becomes, how do we actually grow it ethically and sustainably? The Stoics gave us 4 engines for this: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These aren't abstract virtues. They are levers you can pull in business, investing, and relationships. And so in the next chapter, we will turn to these 4 engines and learn how they can compound your wealth in ways no balance sheet ever could. Chapter 2, the 4 engines: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Picture 2 investors. Both begin with the same amount of money, the same opportunities, even the same information. 10 years later, one has built sustainable wealth and peace of mind. The other is broke, bitter, and restless. What separated them, it wasn't luck. It wasn't markets. It was 4 invisible engines: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The Stoics weren't interested in abstract debates. They handed us practical tools, virtues that act like levers, turning ordinary people into architects of resilience. In this chapter, we will install these 4 engines into your daily operating system for wealth. Because money without virtue is like a ship with no rudder, fast but doomed. The Stoics called these the cardinal virtues. They are not abstract ideals, but practical operating principles. Wisdom is your compass, allowing you to see clearly and make sound judgments. Courage is the engine of bold action, empowering you to take calculated risks. Justice is the social dividend, ensuring that your wealth builds trust instead of corruption. Temperance is the brake system, protecting you from excess and ruin. Think of each virtue as a motor. If even one stalls, your journey falters. But when all 4 are firing together, your trajectory compounds beyond money into freedom, respect, and inner peace. Let's begin with wisdom, the compass. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." Wisdom means seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It means knowing what is within your control, understanding the rules of the game you are playing, and making informed decisions rather than reactive ones. In modern finance, wisdom translates into literacy. It means knowing the difference between assets and liabilities, between speculation and true investing, between short-term hype and long-term value. The reality is sobering. According to the National Financial Capability Study, only about a third of adults worldwide can correctly answer basic questions about interest inflation and risk diversification. That means 2 out of 3 people are essentially driving blind in their financial lives. Warren Buffett has often said he stays within his circle of competence, investing only in what he truly understands. A Stoic would call this wisdom: never act beyond your depth, because ignorance is expensive. The second engine is courage, the motor of bold action. Seneca reminded us, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite fear. In finance and life, courage is buying in a downturn when everyone else is panicking. It is asking for a raise instead of staying silent. It is walking away from a toxic partnership even when it costs you comfort. We saw this clearly in the financial crisis of 2008. Investors who sold in panic locked in their losses permanently. Those who held steady, or better yet invested more during the downturn, saw extraordinary gains in the decade that followed. Marcus Aurelius himself faced plagues, betrayals, and wars, yet he wrote not about retreat but about duty. Courage doesn't erase difficulty. It transforms it into an arena for growth. The third engine is justice, the social dividend. Marcus wrote, "That which is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." Justice in personal wealth means fair contracts, honest reporting, creating value without exploitation. It means remembering that your fortune exists within a community, and if your practices destroy that community, you ultimately destroy yourself. In the modern economy, companies that embed justice into their DNA, like Patagonia, or those with strong environmental, social, and governance commitments, outperform in loyalty and longevity. Customers and employees alike trust them. According to the Edelman Trust Barometer, 60% of consumers say they buy from brands based on value alignment, not just product. Justice compounds into reputation, and reputation compounds into financial capital. 2,000 years ago, Cato the Younger was famed for his incorruptibility, standing against bribes and manipulation. His example endures as proof that reputation is wealth that outlasts empires. Finally, the fourth engine is temperance, the brake system. Epictetus warned, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Temperance is self-control. It is the difference between building assets and chasing appearances. It keeps you from consumer debt, lifestyle inflation, and the endless trap of more. The numbers are stark. The average American household carries over $7,000 in credit card debt, often at interest rates above 20%. Without temperance, compound interest works against you, not for you. The marshmallow test, a famous psychological study on delayed gratification, found that children who could resist temptation ended up with better life outcomes decades later. The Stoics had already grasped this truth. Patience is power, and self-control builds freedom. Now let's make this practical. For the next 7 days, try the virtue ledger. Every major financial decision you make should receive a tag: W for wisdom, C for courage, J for justice, and T for temperance. If a decision does not align with at least one of these virtues, delay or reject it. If it aligns with 2 or more, give it the green light. At the end of 4 weeks, audit yourself. Are at least 80% of your decisions tagged with 2 or more virtues? If yes, you are compounding wealth on Stoic rails. You are no longer chasing gains blindly. You are making decisions that strengthen both your portfolio and your character. Marcus Aurelius himself faced assassinations, betrayals, and plagues. Yet his meditations are filled with reminders to act justly, wisely, courageously, and with restraint. If the most powerful man in the world needed all 4 engines to steer his life, so do we. So let us summarize. Virtues are not ornaments. They are operating systems. Install them, and every decision becomes a wealth decision. Your mantra for this chapter is clear: no profit without principle, no gain without virtue. With this in mind, we have built the engines, but every ship still faces storms. The next question is, how do we handle money itself? The Stoics remind us that money is neutral. Attachment is not. And so in Chapter 3, we will turn to the discipline of handling money as a tool, not as a master. Chapter 3, Money is Neutral. Attachment is not, imagine holding a knife. In the hands of a surgeon, it saves a life. In the hands of a criminal, it takes one. The knife itself is neutral. It does not carry morality. It is the hand that wields it that creates meaning. Money is the same. Marcus Aurelius never wrote that money corrupts. He wrote instead, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking. That single line tells us something modern society often forgets. Money is just a tool. It does not come with moral instructions attached. The market never whispers, this is good or this is bad. It is our attachment or hunger, our fear, our obsession, that turns neutral metal into chains. And this is where the Stoics were radical. They did not see money as evil nor as sacred. They placed it in a category they called preferred indifference, useful when present, not catastrophic when absent. To them, money was like health, reputation, or even weather. Nice to have, but not essential for a good life. The real danger was not in the coin itself, but in the clinging. A coin can pay rent or bribe a judge. It can support your family or fuel your vanity. The object is neutral. The attachment is loaded. Think about your own relationship with money. How often do you say to yourself, "I'll be happy when I earn this much," or "I'll feel safe once I have that amount saved"? This is attachment speaking. It's the inner voice that insists more is always the answer. Seneca dismantled this illusion with one sharp line. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. In other words, poverty is not in the wallet, it is in the wanting. Modern psychology agrees. In 2010, a famous study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton at Princeton showed that emotional well-being rises with income up to about $75,000 per year, which adjusted for inflation is roughly $100,000 today. Beyond that point, happiness plateaus. More money doesn't equal more joy. So imagine two employees. One earns $70,000 and feels genuinely wealthy because their spending aligns with their values. The other earns $150,000 but feels perpetually broke because their neighbor drives a Tesla and they don't. Who is wealthier? The answer is obvious, the one with fewer wants. The Stoics already knew what data now proves. Attachment distorts perception. The object isn't the problem. Your clinging is. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in his meditations that very little is needed for happiness. Epictetus added that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Put those two together and you have a formula for financial freedom that does not depend on the size of your paycheck. Wealth is not about possession, but perception. But how do we apply this practically? One exercise is what I call the values ledger. Take 15 minutes with a blank page. On the left, write money buys. Here you might list security options, generosity experiences. On the right, write money costs. Here you might note envy, overwork, anxiety, sleepless nights. At the bottom, write your non-negotiables, the things money must never cost you, like your health, your ethics, your family dinners, your sense of peace. Keep this ledger somewhere visible for 30 days. Each time you feel pulled into attachment, glance at it. The metric is simple. For 1 month, honor your non-negotiables at least 6 out of 7 days. Track your stress level on a 1 to 10 scale. If you commit honestly, you should see at least a 20% reduction in money-related anxiety. Because what drives stress isn't usually money itself, it's violating your own values in pursuit of it. Seneca's life gives us a fascinating case study. He was one of Rome's richest men, yet his letters are full of warnings about greed. Some critics call him a hypocrite, but the Stoic lesson is subtler. It is not to renounce wealth, but to renounce attachment. Seneca practiced voluntary poverty, deliberately sleeping on hard mattresses, eating coarse bread, and wearing simple clothes to remind himself that comfort is not wealth. He funded public works, supported friends, and used his wealth as a tool. The danger wasn't wealth, it was craving. Think of fire. It can cook your food or burn your house. The Stoics never feared the flame. They feared losing control of it. Consider a modern example. Without Stoic detachment, you stay at a job you hate just for the salary and prestige. Anxiety spikes, health declines, resentment grows. With Stoic detachment, you see money as fuel, not identity. You shift careers even if it means a temporary pay cut, but you gain autonomy, energy, and joy. On paper, you may look poor. In reality, you are far wealthier. Another story. Imagine a trader during a stock market crash. One person has attached their entire identity to portfolio performance. As prices fall, they collapse emotionally, unable to function. Another sees the same red numbers, but remembers money is neutral. Attachment is optional. They breathe, reassess, and perhaps even see opportunity. The event is the same. The story each tells themselves makes one a prisoner and the other free. This is where Stoicism becomes practical psychology. By reframing money as neutral, you cut the chains of anxiety. By reframing attachment as the enemy, you regain control. And by practicing detachment daily, you train resilience that no market fluctuation can shake. Let's return to the values ledger drill for a moment. Imagine you discover that your tranquility consistently scores low because of late-night doom scrolling about markets or constant comparison with wealthier peers. You could commit to a 30-minute digital sunset each evening, no screens before bed. Over time, your mind rests easier, your sleep improves, your resilience grows. That improvement isn't just a lifestyle perk, it is wealth. Because wealth in Stoicism is measured not by digits, but by your ability to remain undisturbed. Attachment shrinks freedom. Detachment expands it. When you stop needing money to validate you, you start using money to serve you. You stop asking how much is enough and start asking, what is money for? And the answers become clear: security, freedom, contribution experiences aligned with your values. Everything else is noise. Seneca told his friend Lucilius that difficulty strengthens the mind as labor strengthens the body. Apply that here. The difficulty is to loosen your grip on money as identity. The strengthening comes when you realize you can lose coins and still remain whole. In fact, you may discover that losing coins can reveal what you truly cannot afford to lose: your peace, your honesty, your relationships, your health. So here's your mantra for this chapter: money is a tool. I am the master, not the slave. Repeat it when you feel the urge to compare paychecks. Repeat it when fear of loss grips you. Repeat it when greed whispers that one more zero will finally make you safe. Because the richest person is not the one who stacks the most, but the one who wants the least. Now let's look ahead. If money is neutral and attachment is the trap, the next question becomes, how do we balance the paradox of wealth and wisdom? Can you be powerful, wealthy, and still stoic? Seneca lived this tension. He was rich, influential, and deeply committed to philosophy. He showed us that it is possible to hold both wealth and principle without being destroyed by either. In Chapter 4, we'll mine his paradox for lessons on power without losing virtue. Chapter 4, Seneca, Power and Paradox. Picture this: a man who preached simplicity, yet owned vast estates that stretched across the Roman Empire. A philosopher who warned against greed, yet lent money at interest to entire provinces. A thinker who wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor," and yet was accused of hoarding fortunes so immense that senators muttered in envy. That man was Seneca, the younger playwright tutor to Nero, advisor at the imperial court, Stoic philosopher, and one of the wealthiest men of his age. His life is not a tidy fable. It is a paradox. But within that paradox lies a lesson that still applies. Today, wealth and wisdom can coexist, but only if you hold the attachment lightly. The danger is never in the coin itself. The danger is in becoming possessed by what you possess. This chapter is not about putting Seneca on a pedestal. It is about mining his contradictions for guidance. Because the truth is, none of us live in perfect alignment with our ideals. We preach balance while overworking. We speak about health while neglecting sleep. We praise simplicity while scrolling through catalogs for things we don't need. Seneca was no different, but that makes him a better guide, not a worse one. His paradox is our mirror. The Stoics never rejected wealth outright. They rejected dependence on wealth. They treated it as a preferred indifferent, something useful but not essential. And Seneca's life shows us the razor's edge. Riches can be tools for influence, generosity, and impact, but the craving for more corrodes from the inside. The question is not whether you can be rich and stoic. The question is whether you can hold power without being hollowed out by it. Seneca's words anchor us. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Or Marcus Aurelius reminding himself, you could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow. Or Epictetus pushing the lesson further. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Taken together, these lines sketch a philosophy that measures wealth by the soul's integrity, not by the size of estates. Now imagine Rome in the first century. Nero, a young and volatile emperor, sits on the throne. At his side is Seneca, once his tutor, now his chief advisor. Seneca writes essays on tranquility and brevity of life while navigating the chaos of imperial politics. He enjoys luxury, but also practices voluntary hardship. He fasts. He sleeps on the floor. He reminds himself that he can endure less. He funds plays, supports friends, and writes letters that would outlive him by millennia. And all the while, critics whisper, how can a Stoic preach detachment while swimming in gold? The paradox wasn't lost on Seneca himself. In his letters to Lucilius, he confesses, I am not a wise man, and I never will be. I am a patient with a long illness speaking to fellow patients. That confession is crucial. It shows us that imperfection doesn't disqualify you from philosophy. It qualifies you. Because philosophy is not a performance of virtue, it is a practice of striving. Fast forward 2,000 years and we see the same paradox playing out. Silicon Valley founders preach mindfulness while chasing billion-dollar IPOs. Influencers speak of simplicity while selling luxury retreats. Politicians praise service while clinging to privilege. Like Seneca, they stand at the crossroads. Is wealth their tool or their trap? The Stoic lens doesn't cancel them. It asks instead, are you using wealth to amplify virtue or to inflate vanity? To bring this into daily life, you can practice what I call the paradox journal. At the end of each day after a financial or career win, ask yourself, what virtue did this profit require? Did it take wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance? And after each loss, ask, what vice did it expose? Was it greed, fear, vanity, impatience? For example, you negotiate a raise. That required courage and wisdom. You buy a flashy car just to impress. That exposed vanity. With time, your journal becomes a mirror that reveals recurring blind spots. The metric is simple. Commit to at least a dozen entries each month. By the end, you should be able to identify at least one recurring pattern. Maybe impatience drives your spending. Maybe vanity shapes your choices. Once spotted, you build a guardrail, a rule that protects you from your own weakness. It could be a 72-hour rule before any purchase over $500. It could be a written reflection before saying yes to a new deal. These small guardrails transform paradox into practice. Consider the outcomes. Without Stoic awareness, you climb the ladder but compromise ethics along the way, cutting corners, exploiting others, hollowing out your integrity. You may end with a rich bank account, but you carry a poor character. With Stoic awareness, you use wealth to free your time support causes you believe in and protect your integrity. The net result is power with principle. Modern data confirms this divide. Studies show that 78% of lottery winners are broke within 5 years. Wealth without wisdom collapses. Meanwhile, Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in 1958. Why? Because his wealth aligns with principle, not performance. Seneca's paradox reminds us that money magnifies what is already in you. If you are ruled by greed, wealth enslaves. If guided by virtue, wealth empowers. So what do we take from Seneca's contradictions? First, that it is possible to be rich and stoic, but only if you are ruthless with attachment. Second, that philosophy is not about flawless living, but about honest striving. Third, that wealth is always a mirror. It reflects the state of your soul more than the state of your portfolio. Seneca's paradox offers us a mantra worth carrying. I may hold wealth, but it does not hold me. Say it when you earn more. Say it when you lose some. Say it when envy whispers or when pride swells. Because the real danger is not in having much or little, but in being owned by either condition. This brings us to the next stage of our journey. Seneca shows us that paradox doesn't need to paralyze. But to truly stay free in a world of gains and losses, the Stoics gave us another tool, the dichotomy of control. It is the mental framework that separates what belongs to us from what never will. In the next chapter, we'll see how to apply this timeless Stoic tool to finance decision-making and peace of mind. Because freedom is not about avoiding money. Freedom is about mastering the line between what you control and what you don't. Chapter 5, the Dichotomy of Control Finance Edition. Picture yourself watching the stock ticker bleed red numbers tumbling down like dominoes. Your phone buzzes with alerts. News anchors talk about collapse panic crisis. Your chest tightens, palms sweat, and that little voice in your head screams, sell before it's too late. But then another voice, an older, calmer one, cuts through the noise. Epictetus. Some things are up to us, others are not. And suddenly there is space to breathe. Because while you cannot control the market's roller coaster, you can control whether you grip the safety bar or leap off in fear. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control, the dividing line between what belongs to you and what never will. In daily life, it keeps you calm. In finance, it keeps you solvent. Financial storms are not a matter of if, they are a matter of when. The only question is whether you will be ruled by panic or guided by clarity. The Stoics didn't trade stocks, but they faced wars, plagues, and palace intrigues. Their wealth was measured in steadiness under fire. And that steadiness is the investor's ultimate edge. The key idea is simple outcomes or noisy inputs are yours. You cannot command markets' bosses, inflation, or tax policy. But you can shape budgets, savings rates, diversification, skill growth. You can influence negotiations, relationships, and reputation. The wise investor accepts the noise of outcomes and focuses on the signal of inputs. Wealth is not about predicting the future. It is about preparing for it. Marcus Aurelius framed it perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Seneca added, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And nowhere is this truer than in money. We suffer more from what we imagine the market will do than from what it actually does. Consider the story of two traders in 2008. Trader A spends nights glued to the news, convinced the world is ending. He panics, sells at the bottom, and locks in ruin. Trader B keeps a written plan taped above her desk. Save 20%, rebalance annually, never sell in fear. When the storm comes, she follows the script. She survives the crash and in time thrives. What separated them, not intelligence, not access, not even luck. The difference was control. One tried to wrestle the wind. The other trimmed her sails. So how do we practice this dichotomy of control in our own finances? One simple tool, the daily finance card. Take an index card in the morning and draw 3 circles. In the first, write what is in your control: budgeting, saving effort, asset allocation. In the second, write what you can influence: asking for a raise, pitching a client, negotiating rent. In the third, write what you cannot control: Federal Reserve decisions, global oil prices, the mood swings of crypto. Your rule is simple. Do one task in the first circle today. Schedule one action in the second circle. Cross out the third circle and release it. Measure it this way: after 2 weeks, doom scrolling time should drop by 30%. After 1 month, your savings rate should climb by 5 points. After 30 days, your baseline stress on a scale of 1 to 10 should fall at least by 1. That's philosophy in numbers. This shift isn't abstract. It shows up in daily life. You can control gas prices, but you can control how often you drive, whether you meal prep or whether you pick up a side gig. You can't control market cycles, but you can control whether your portfolio is diversified, whether you keep contributing, and whether you rebalance with discipline. You can't control your boss's moods, but you can control whether you keep your skills sharp, your preparation thorough, your reputation solid. The Stoic never bets on the win. He trims the sails. Look back to 2020. In March, markets plunged over 30% in just weeks. Headlines screamed about depression-level collapse. Millions sold and locked in catastrophic losses. Yet those who stayed invested were back to even by August. The only difference was that some clung to what they could not control, while others held steady to what they could. The psychological reframe works like this. The event: a stock drops 10%. The story: I'm ruined. I'll never recover. The virtue response: temperance, to stay steady, wisdom, to check fundamentals, courage, to hold your position. Fact is never the enemy. The story you attach to it is. And stories, unlike markets, are always editable. Here's another example. A young professional checks her portfolio every morning. Each dip feels like a dagger. Anxiety spreads into her workday, her sleep, her relationships. She decides to practice Stoic control. She sets a rule: she will only check her investments once a month, and only after reviewing her savings rate and budget first. Within weeks, her stress drops. Nothing in the market changed, but she changed, and that made all the difference. History reminds us too. During Rome's Antonine Plague panic spread faster than the disease. Marcus Aurelius wrote not about despair, but about duty. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Replace plague with crash, war with recession, and the advice holds. Control your estimate. That's wealth. The mantra for this chapter is simple. Effort is mine. Outcome is fortune's. Say it before a salary review. Say it before clicking buy or sell. Say it when news headlines scream apocalypse. Because your job is never to tame fortune. Your job is to master yourself. Here's your assignment. For the next 7 days, practice the daily finance card. Each morning, list your 3 circles. At night, review. Did I act on what I control? Did I move what I influence? Did I release what I cannot? After a week, patterns will emerge. You'll see where you waste energy chasing smoke and where you build strength stacking bricks. The truth is, money doesn't break people. Attachment to uncontrollable outcomes does. The Stoics knew this long before financial analysts. Focus on inputs. Release outcomes. That is the investor's edge. And once you've drawn that line clearly, you find a deeper freedom. You're no longer yanked by every market swing or boss's mood. You stop being a puppet of headlines. You become an author of your own financial script. That is the gift of the dichotomy of control. It is the anchor in a sea of volatility, the map when the charts are smudged, the rudder when fortune shakes the ship. It is the difference between collapse and composure, between panic selling and patient building. But freedom alone is not enough. To build enduring wealth, you also need fuel. You need a way to balance contentment with ambition, to be grateful for today while still striving for tomorrow. In the next chapter, we'll explore these twin engines of wealth, how to grow without greed, and how to rest without stagnation. Because Stoic wealth is not about choosing between gratitude and growth, it is about harnessing both at once. Chapter 6, Contentment x Ambition. Most people think wealth is built only by ambition, working harder, chasing bigger goals, climbing higher ladders. Others think it is found only in contentment, slowing down, appreciating what you already have, staying satisfied with less. But if you lean too far in the either direction, the engine breaks down. Pure ambition without gratitude leaves you restless, burned out, always sprinting, but never arriving. Pure contentment without growth leaves you stagnant, comfortable in mediocrity, unwilling to stretch. The Stoics saw this clearly. The art of living well is not choosing one or the other, but blending both. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Contentment gives those thoughts stability. Ambition gives them direction. Together, they compound into a form of wealth that is both sustainable and satisfying." Think of a ship. Contentment is the anchor. It keeps you grounded steady against the waves. Ambition is the sail. It catches the wind, moves you forward, pushes you toward distant shores. Without an anchor, you drift recklessly. Without a sail, you go nowhere. But when both work together, you progress with peace. Seneca reminded us it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. He knew that ambition without contentment is a recipe for poverty of the soul. And Epictetus offered the counterbalance: first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That is ambition given clarity and shape. Together, these voices teach us that wealth lies in holding gratitude for today while still shaping tomorrow. Let's ground this in a story. Imagine 3 builders. The first builder never feels enough. He completes a house, steps back, and immediately mutters, "Too small, too plain. I need more." His ambition drives progress, but his soul grows restless and tired. The second builder is the opposite. He is so content with his small hut that he never expands. Every storm ruins his home, yet he shrugs and rebuilds the same fragile shelter year after year. His contentment has become complacency. But then there is the third builder. He completes his house, takes a moment to feel grateful, and then asks, "What's the next brick I can lay that will serve better?" Gratitude fuels his peace. Ambition fuels his growth. And because he blends both, his village prospers. That third builder is the Stoic model of wealth progress, with gratitude growth without greed. How do we cultivate this balance? The Stoics used a practice called negative visualization. Every morning, imagine losing one ordinary blessing, your health, your partner, your voice, even your freedom. Then choose one act of care to honor that gift today. If you imagine losing your voice, perhaps you decide to call your father just to talk. If you imagine losing your health, maybe you eat a cleaner meal or go for a walk. This simple practice trains contentment by reminding you how much you already have. But the Stoics did not stop at gratitude. They paired it with ambition. After your negative visualization, set one target for growth, single action that nudges your future forward. Maybe it is 1 hour of deep work, a page in your book draft, or an extra set in your workout. In 5 minutes, you align both engines: contentment for the present, ambition for the future. Measure it this way. After 2 weeks, your mood baseline should climb at least 1 point on a 10-point scale. After 30 days, impulse purchases should fall by 25% because gratitude shields you from craving. Meanwhile, skill practice time should rise by 20% because ambition keeps you building. Gratitude lowers waste. Ambition increases output. Together, they form compounding returns on life. You can apply this balance everywhere. In finances, contentment means you stop chasing your neighbor's car or your colleague's wardrobe. Ambition means you steadily raise your savings rate, invest with discipline, and build long-term freedom. In career, contentment means you value the role you already hold, even if imperfect. Ambition means you sharpen the next skill that unlocks a promotion or prepares you for a pivot. In relationships, contentment means you cherish the bonds you already have instead of hunting endlessly for novelty. Ambition means you deepen those bonds with effort, an intentional date, a vulnerable conversation, a handwritten letter. The research supports this dual engine. A 2019 Harvard study found that daily gratitude practices can increase baseline happiness by up to 25%. Meanwhile, decades of goal-setting research shows that clear, specific targets increase performance by 20 to 30%. Blend gratitude with goals and you unlock compounding progress that neither alone can sustain. Here is a psychological reframe to carry with you. Instead of saying I will be happy when I achieve X, say I am already grateful, and this next step is a bonus. This mindset cuts both traps. Ambition without contentment is slavery because you're always chasing the horizon. Contentment without ambition is sleepwalking because you're always standing still. The Stoic lives awake, grateful yet striving. Let's bring in some modern parallels. Consider Warren Buffett. Despite his vast fortune, he still lives in the same house he bought in 1958. That is contentment. Yet he continues reading, investing, and growing Berkshire Hathaway. That is ambition. Or think of athletes like Serena Williams. Contentment shows in her joy of playing. Ambition shows in her relentless practice. The combination produces greatness that is both resilient and sustainable. The mantra for this chapter is simple: grateful for today, building for tomorrow. Write it at the top of your journal. Whisper it before you check your bank account. Repeat it when you celebrate a win or face a setback. Gratitude stabilizes your emotions. Ambition gives them direction. Here's your drill for the week. Each morning, spend 5 minutes on the Contentment X Ambition practice. Step 1, negative visualization picture. The loss of something ordinary, then choose one action of gratitude. Step 2, ambition target. Set one clear growth task for the day. Track it in your journal. After 7 days, you will see your thinking shift. Daily life feels fuller, yet progress feels smoother. Less desperation, more direction. The goal is not to extinguish desire or to float in passive gratitude. The goal is balance. You acknowledge abundance without denying growth. You push forward without despising the present. This balance creates wealth that is durable, not fragile, wealth that lives in both your portfolio and your peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the cold dawn of a Roman palace, reminded himself, "At dawn, remember I am rising to do the work of a human being." That is ambition. But he also wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That is contentment. Two engines working together, guiding an emperor and still guiding us today. So pause for a moment. Look around your life. What do you already have that millions would envy? That is your contentment. Then ask, what is the next brick you can lay that makes tomorrow stronger? That is your ambition. Wealth grows at the intersection of those two questions. And with that, we arrive at a natural transition. Balancing contentment and ambition gives you both calm and drive. But philosophy without practice dies as poetry. That is why in the next chapter, we will build the Stoic Finance Stacka practical blueprint for saving, debt investing, and skills all guided by virtue. Because knowing the engines means little unless you know how to build the machine. Chapter 7, the Stoic Finance Stack Practical. Imagine if Marcus Aurelius were alive today. Do you think he'd be scrolling YouTube for get-rich-quick hacks or jumping into crypto pumps at midnight hoping to double his money by dawn? Hardly. He would build a system layered like bricks, so sturdy that wealth would eventually look inevitable. Seneca once warned, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool." The Stoic path isn't about stumbling into millions or playing the lottery of markets. It's about designing money practices so consistent, so boring, so disciplined that they eventually resemble destiny. This is where we arrive at what I call the Stoic finance stack. Think of it as your fortress against financial chaos. 5 pillars, practical and timeless. Not glamorous, but unshakable. The first pillar is frugality, the Stoic baseline. It's not about living like a monk or denying yourself every comfort. It's about clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." Translate that into modern numbers and you get a simple formula. 50% of income goes to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to saving or investing. If you earn $3,000 a month, that's $1,500 for essentials, $900 for enjoyment, and $600 for future wealth. Not deprivation, but structure. Frugality reminds you that wealth begins not with earning more, but with wanting less. The second pillar is the emergency fund, your peace of mind money. The Stoics constantly train their minds by imagining worst-case scenarios. Your emergency fund is the financial equivalent of that exercise. 3 to 6 months of living expenses if you're salaried, 12 months if you're self-employed. Why? Because uncertainty is not a question of if, but when. Seneca said, "He who has prepared has half conquered misfortune." Imagine the difference between a flat tire being a catastrophe and a flat tire being a mild inconvenience. The gap isn't luck, it's preparation. The third pillar is debt discipline, cutting chains, not corners. High-interest debt is financial slavery. You cannot call yourself free if your paycheck belongs to the bank before it belongs to you. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If creditors own you, then your freedom is compromised. The rule here is simple: use the avalanche method. Attack the highest interest first and do not stop until it's dead. A $5,000 balance at 20% interest will drain $1,000 from you every single year. Kill it, and you've given yourself an instant raise. The fourth pillar is investing. And here's the irony: the Stoic way of investing is boring. No fireworks, no hot tips, just principles. Automate your contributions. Dollar cost average. Diversify. Rebalance once a year. And stay away from the illusion of brilliance. Data shows the S&P 500 has returned roughly 10% annually for the last 50 years. The disciplined investor beats the 99 speculators because discipline outperforms drama. Remember Marcus Aurelius' advice: don't waste the rest of your time worrying about others unless it affects the common good. In money terms, don't waste your time chasing other people's hype. The fifth and final pillar is career capital, your infinite asset. Every year, commit to learning at least one rare and valuable skill. Quantify your worth and build skills that turn obstacles into leverage. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. If the market shifts, let your skills become the sword that cuts through change." Maybe it's coding, design, negotiation, public speaking, or leadership. Unlike stocks or property, skills can't be stolen or devalued overnight. They are wealth you carry everywhere. To tie this together, picture a Roman soldier. His wealth wasn't in coins, it was in preparedness. His shield was his emergency fund. His sword was his skill set. His discipline was his frugality. His armor was his freedom from debt. His formation, steady and patient, was long-term investing. He didn't survive battles because of luck. He survived because he had stacked his principles. The same applies to you. Now let's make this practical. Every Monday, carve out 30 minutes for what I call Money Monday. In that time, review your spending. That's frugality. Check your cash buffer. That's the emergency fund. Pay down a slice of debt. That's discipline. Automate one investment. That's long-term growth. And finally, list one concrete action to grow a skill that week. That's career capital. 30 minutes once a week. Doesn't sound dramatic, But consistency compounds into something that feels unshakable. You can even track it. Aim for a savings rate of 20% or more over 90 days. Grow your emergency fund by at least 1 month's worth of expenses each quarter until you hit the target. Cut your debt interest payments by half in a year. Automate 100% of your portfolio contributions. And every year, upgrade one skill measurable in income or opportunity. These are your scoreboard metrics, proof that your fortress is being built brick by brick. Let's put it into real-world terms. Cancel an unused subscription and funnel the extra $50 into investments. That's $600 a year compounding quietly in your favor. Save $10 a week for emergencies. That's $500 in a year, which might not sound like much until the day your car battery dies, and it covers the cost without panic. Pay off a $5,000 credit card at 20% interest, and you saved yourself $1,000 a year. Automate $500 a month into an index fund for 30 years, and you're looking at around $600,000. Learn negotiation, and you might add 10 to 20% to your salary, which over a lifetime equals hundreds of thousands in extra wealth. The Stoic reframe is this: don't think I'm restricting myself. Think I'm buying freedom. Every dollar saved is autonomy. Every debt killed is tranquility. Every skill mastered is destiny. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you apply that to money, you realize you cannot control the market, but you can control your system. You cannot predict luck, but you can stack discipline. And here's the sobering data. 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 40% cannot cover a $400 emergency. Yet households who consistently save 20% or more retire wealthy regardless of income bracket. The problem isn't lack of money. It's lack of a stack. Without structure, money slips away. With structure, it compounds. So let this be your mantra for the chapter: stack the bricks. Secure the fortress. Each pillar: frugality, emergency fund, debt discipline, investing, and career capital works like stone walls, shields, and towers. None alone will save you. Together, they create a fortress that no storm can breach. And this is where philosophy meets practicality. The Stoics were not armchair theorists. Marcus wrote his meditations as training, not publishing. Seneca practiced hardship to inoculate himself against loss. Epictetus, born a slave, built freedom through discipline of mind. They would recognize the Stoic finance stack immediately: principles hardened into habits, habits hardened into strength. Now pause and reflect. Which of the 5 pillars is your weakest? Is it the absence of savings, the drag of debt, the lack of a skill you keep postponing? Circle it. That is your next brick. Wealth isn't built in a day. It's built one disciplined choice at a time. And with this stack, you have a blueprint the schools never gave you. A fortress the markets cannot shake. A system that turns money from master into servant. But our journey doesn't stop here. The modern world will tempt you with new arenas: startups, crypto, high-risk ventures, shiny opportunities that promise faster wealth. How do you enter those arenas without losing your soul? That is where we go next. Chapter 8. The modern arena: startups, markets, crypto without losing your soul. Chapter 8. Modern arena: startups, markets, crypto without losing your soul. 2,000 years ago, Romans packed into the Colosseum to watch gladiators battle lions. The dust, the roar of the crowd, the sharp tension between survival and spectacle. Fast forward to today, and the Colosseum still exists. It just fits in your pocket. You open your phone and step into arenas just as brutal startup pitches, market swings, and crypto charts glowing red and green at 2 in the morning. The roar is still there. The fear is still real. The temptation of fortune or ruin remains as sharp as any sword. Marcus Aurelius warned, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles aren't to be avoided. They are training grounds. But the catch is this: if you enter the modern wealth arena without rules, without virtue, without discipline, you'll be chewed up by the very games you're trying to win. This chapter is your shield. It's about how to play the modern money games without losing your soul. The modern Stoic must accept that 3 arenas dominate today's financial imagination: startups, chasing disruption markets, where stocks and ETFs rise and fall with global tides, and crypto, volatile, alluring, and sometimes predatory. Stoicism doesn't say avoid these arenas. It says enter with virtue and if you must exit, exit with your soul intact. The first rule is to write your risk charter. Epictetus taught first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. In practical terms, this means setting boundaries before you play. Define your maximum position size. For example, never risk more than 5% of your net worth in one venture. Set your stop-loss boundaries. Never let a single mistake wipe you out. Require a clear thesis for every investment. If you can't explain why in 2 sentences, you have no business putting money there. And finally, add an ethics clause. I will not profit by harming others. Without this charter, you're gambling. With it, you're training. The second rule is to guard against the crowd. Seneca warned, he who seeks wisdom is not governed by the opinion of the crowd. The arenas of modern wealth are fueled by herd mentality, fear of missing out during crypto pumps, panic selling in market crashes, hype-driven valuations in startups. The Stoic defense is what I call the 2-breath rule. Before you buy, sell, or even reply to the frenzy, pause twice. Ask yourself, am I acting from reason or am I being infected by contagion? Those 2 breaths can be the difference between a ruinous decision and a rational one. The third rule is to wear emotional armor. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. You can't stop volatility. Markets will fall, startups will fail, coins will collapse, but you can stop self-destruction. Here's the drill: keep an emotion journal. Every time you trade, invest, or make a financial decision, write down 3 things. The fact, what happened. The feeling, fear, greed, hope, anxiety. And the virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance. Over time, the journal trains you to separate fact from frenzy, virtue from vice. The result is that emotional spikes flatten and clarity sharpens. The fourth rule is to filter every opportunity through the 4 Stoic virtues. Ask, do I understand this? That's wisdom. Am I willing to risk deliberately, not recklessly? That's courage. Is this ethical, or am I exploiting? That's justice. And finally, am I overextended, or can I say no? That's temperance. If an opportunity fails 2 or more of these filters, decline it. Remember, the money you don't lose is often the money that builds your wealth. Now let's turn to story. Picture a founder in today's startup arena. He doesn't hold a sword but a pitch deck. The crowd, venture capitalists, customers, employees, roars for growth at all costs. Competitors circle like lions. Investors demand spectacle, not stability. A Stoic founder resists the frenzy. He remembers Marcus's words, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Instead of cutting corners, he treats employees fairly, builds ethically, and focuses on durability over hype. The result, he earns reputation capital, the rarest and most durable asset of all. You can train this mindset with what I call the arena log. Once a week, take 20 minutes. Write down 1 win, write down 1 mistake, tag each with a virtue. Was it wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance? Then define 1 correction. Over 3 months, you'll shrink your blind spots and watch your discipline compound. And here's the data: 90% of startups fail. 95% of traders lose money long-term. Bitcoin has dropped by more than 80% from peak multiple times. Yet disciplined players still thrive. Venture capitalists expect 9 of 10 bets to fail, but the one survivor pays for all the losses. Long-term investors in the S&P 500 still average 8 to 10% returns. The difference is never the arena, it's the principles. The Stoic reframe is simple: don't ask how fast can I win. Ask how long can I endure. Wealth is not about a lucky strike. It's about surviving storms. The Colosseum, whether marble or digital, will always tempt you with spectacle. The lions, fear, greed, envy are still waiting. But the Stoic enters, calmly, fights deliberately, and exits with dignity intact. So here's your mantra for the modern arena: enter the arena, guard your soul, and win by virtue, not by frenzy. And with that, we turn to something even more critical. Wealth isn't just about battles. It's not just about what happens when the lions circle or when the markets roar. It's also about what happens quietly each morning when you wake, each night before you sleep. Because philosophy without daily practice dies as poetry. That's why in the next chapter, we'll build the Daily Protocol, a training program for your mind, the system that ensures every day you live wealth, not just chase it. Chapter 9, Daily Protocol Program. Your mind. Imagine your mind as the operating system of your life. If you don't update it daily, bugs creep in, envy, fear, distraction. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for peace to appear magically. He programmed it into himself. Each dawn he rehearsed discipline. Each evening he audited his soul. He treated his mind like a system that required maintenance, not a vague cloud of thoughts drifting in chance. Real wealth doesn't come from a single lucky windfall. It compounds in daily loops. Thought leads to action. Action leads to reflection. Reflection leads to correction. And when you repeat that cycle day after day, it becomes armor against chaos. If you want financial wealth to endure, you must first master mental wealth. That mastery starts with a protocol. The Stoics were engineers of the mind. They built morning routines to install clarity and evening rituals to install correction. Together, these form a feedback loop. A morning script sets your direction. A nightly script checks your compass. Run this for 30 days and you will not just have routine, you will have resilience. So let's begin with the morning. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "At dawn, remember I am rising to do the work of a human being." He knew mornings are fragile. They set the trajectory for the entire day. Instead of reaching for your phone, the Stoic morning begins with 3 questions. What is in my control today? Write down 2 actions that are fully yours, like effort on a project or a workout or a spending choice. What action matters most? Circle 1 and commit to finishing it by noon. And finally, what virtue leads today? Wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance, choose one and make it your lens. This is not about hours of journaling. It's 3 minutes, 3 questions. But those minutes change the quality of the other 1,437 in your day. Track this for a month and you'll notice the baseline of clarity rising by at least 25%. Now let's move to the evening. Seneca described his nightly practice this way. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day. He treated night as a mirror, not a blur. The evening script is just as simple as the morning. Ask yourself, where did I live the virtue today? Maybe you acted with courage in a meeting or with temperance at dinner. Where did I miss the mark? Perhaps impatience with a child or fear in a conversation. And finally, what is one correction for tomorrow? Write down a small fix. This is not self-punishment, it is course correction. Pilots adjust their flight path constantly. You adjust your life path nightly. The reason this matters is obvious once you consider the world we live in. The average person checks their phone over 100 times a day. That's 100 injections of programming from outside forces, ads, algorithms, headlines. If you don't deliberately program your mind, someone else will. The Stoic flips the script. Instead of waiting to be programmed by the world, they program themselves first. Think of Marcus Aurelius not as an emperor, but as a general in the field. Surrounded by betrayal, plague, and war, he still carved out quiet minutes each morning and night to write in his journal. Those writings were not for history, they were for survival. His notebook was his command tent. Each line of thought was a soldier placed in formation. By dawn he prepared. By night he regrouped. That is how empires external and internal air held together. To make this practical, try what I call the daily double. 6 minutes total. 3 minutes in the morning with your questions, 3 minutes in the evening with your review. Do this for 30 days. At first it feels small, almost trivial, but by day 30 you will see patterns. Wasted time becomes visible. Repeated emotional triggers stand out. Quiet victories shine brighter. Habits once invisible reveal themselves. And the simple act of noticing becomes the foundation for changing. The data supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that journaling reduces stress by nearly 30%. Sleep quality improves dramatically when evening reflection replaces screen time. Top performers across industries track 3 to 5 habits daily, not 50. Your daily protocol is not luxury, it is leverage. Reframe the way you think about growth. Don't say, "I'll try to be better this year." That's too vague, too heavy. Instead say, "I'll run the loop today." Annual goals often collapse under their own weight. Daily loops, on the other hand, accumulate quietly like interest. Day by day, they build something that feels unshakable. The Stoic mantra for this practice is simple effort, daily outcomes eventually. You cannot guarantee results on command, but you can guarantee effort today. And in time, effort compounds into outcomes. So here is your assignment for the next 30 days. Run the daily double. Each morning, 3 questions. Each evening, 3 reflections. That's it. Do it faithfully, and you will start to feel a firewall around your mind. Distraction will knock, but you won't open the door. Fear will whisper, but you'll have your script ready. You'll become less reactive, more deliberate, and more grounded. You have now built your inner operating system. But a system without a plan is scattered. In the next chapter, we compress everything into one page, a Stoic wealth plan you can hold, see, and live by. This is where philosophy becomes blueprint and blueprint becomes action. Chapter 10, your one-page Stoic wealth plan. Marcus Aurelius carried his wisdom not in a library, but in a scroll, his meditations. Seneca's letters, often just a page. Epictetus' notes, scribbled in shorthand by his students. The Stoics knew a truth we often forget: clarity fits on one page. Complexity drowns, but simplicity directs. Today you are going to build your own one-page Stoic wealth plan, not a 300-page binder that gathers dust. A living scroll you can see daily, a reminder that shapes your decisions. Because wealth, both inner and outer, is not built on memory, it is built on visible reminders. A plan you see becomes a plan you live. The first section is purpose. Wealth without purpose is drift. Nietzsche, echoing the Stoics, once said, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." So take a moment and write in 1 or 2 sentences, I build wealth to. Maybe it is to free your time to support your family or to serve your community. Whatever it is, keep it short and keep it honest. Read it aloud daily for the next 30 days. This statement is the compass for your financial journey. The second section is virtues. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Wealth without virtue corrodes. Wealth with virtue compounds. Circle the virtue that anchors you: wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance. Then write one financial behavior for each. Wisdom might mean researching before you invest. Courage might mean asking for the raise you know you've earned. Justice could be setting fair prices if you run a business. Temperance might be refusing to spiral into debt for appearances. When at least 80% of your financial moves align with one or more virtues, you're building wealth on Stoic rails. The third section is your enough number. Socrates said, if you are not content with what you have, you would not be content with what you would like to have. This is where you define contentment. Calculate your monthly expenses, multiply by 12, then by 25. That's your baseline for financial independence. If your monthly needs are $3,000, your enough number is around $900,000. Circle it, name it, and call it enough. Review it quarterly and notice, does life drift higher, or can enough even shrink as your wants simplify? The fourth section is debt. Debt is modern slavery. Publilius Cyrus said it bluntly, debt is the slavery of the free. Write down every debt, the rate, and the balance. Then attack the highest interest first, like cutting the strongest chain. Maybe that means an extra $100 a month toward the card with the 20% APR. Track your freedom date and watch it shrink. Each payment is not just math, is a blow against servitude. The fifth section is save and invest rules. Epictetus said wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Clarity here protects you from frenzy. Write 3 rules, save at least 20% of your income. Keep an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months and automate investing into diversified funds with yearly rebalancing. Pin these rules where you see them. Track your savings rate monthly. You don't rise to the level of your ambition, you fall to the level of your rules. The sixth section is career capital. Epictetus reminded his students, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Wealth flows from skill, not from speculation. Each year, commit to mastering one rare and valuable skill. Write it down. In 12 months, I will master negotiation, or design, or coding, or public speaking. Then check yourself quarterly. Are you at 25%, 50%, 75%? Career capital is your infinite asset, the one no market crash can erase. The seventh section is giving. Seneca wrote, no man is poor who can give. Decide a percentage now, 1%, 5%, 10%. Automate donations to causes aligned with justice. Write it clearly, I give 5% to X. Track whether you actually give what you plan. Giving reminds you that money is a tool, not an idol. It keeps the soul from shrinking under the weight of gold. The eighth section is non-negotiables. Marcus said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Write 3 things money must never cost you. Maybe it's your sleep. Maybe it's family dinners. Maybe it's your ethics. These are your guardrails. Audit weekly. If you're living them 90% of the time, you're not trading life for ledger entries. The ninth section is review cadence. Theophrastus, a Stoic adjacent thinker, said time is the most valuable thing a man can spend. So set your cadence. A monthly budget review, a quarterly plan review, a yearly life audit. Put the dates in your calendar. Aim to hit 80% of those reviews. Your one-page plan isn't status, it's alive, breathing with your seasons of life. Now comes the drill, the one-page build. Take 45 minutes, one blank page, 9 sections. Fill it in, print it, post it where you'll see it every morning. This is your scroll. Not polished for others, but practical for you. Why does one page work? Because the human brain holds about 7 chunks of information at once. Miller's law proves it. A 50-page binder is procrastination. A one-page plan is clarity, and clarity multiplied by consistency equals wealth. Picture Marcus Aurelius in a war tent. Plague rages, enemies press. He pulls one small scroll, his notes, not written for history, written to survive, to remind. Your one-page plan is your meditations, not for Instagram, not for applause, but for endurance. The mantra is simple: see the page, live the plan. Wealth without a plan is drift. Wealth with a one-page plan is direction. So here is your closing challenge. Today, take 45 minutes, build your scroll, post it where your eyes cannot miss it. Read it daily. Because Marcus was right. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and nothing shapes your thoughts like what you see every morning. Make it visible, make it simple, make it stoic. Your empire, both internal and external, awaits. If this reframed what wealth truly means, pause and write in the comments right now. I choose virtue over volatility. That single declaration marks the shift from chasing numbers that fluctuate to building a foundation that endures. Then think of just one person in your circle who is still chasing status instead of sovereignty. Share this with them, not to preach, but to plant a seed. Sometimes a sentence, a story, or a single Stoic truth can change the way someone handles money, time, and peace. And if you felt a spark here, subscribe to Making Life Better. This is where ancient wisdom meets modern systems. No fluff, no noise. Only practical tools, tested drills, and timeless reminders. Because real wealth is twofold: money you can count and peace you can trust. Quiet work always creates the loudest results. Start building yours today.